In the early 20th century, the glow of progress and innovation illuminated the industrial world. But hidden within that glow was a deadly secret. A secret that would devastate lives and forever change workplace safety regulations. Today, we're diving into the compelling story of the Radium Girls, a group of women whose tragic yet heroic fight for justice left an indelible mark on history. Let's travel back to the 1910s and 1920s. World War I was raging, and the demand for efficient and reliable tools for soldiers was at an all-time high. One critical invention of the era was the luminous watch dial. These glowing dials were painted using a special radium-based paint, allowing soldiers to easily read the time in the dark trenches. Radium, discovered just a couple of decades earlier by Marie and Pierre Curie, was considered a miracle substance. It wasn't just for watch dials. Radium was believed to have almost magical health properties. It was marketed as a cure-all, added to water, cosmetics, and even chocolates. People marveled at its faint glow, unaware of its true nature. In factories across the United States, young women were hired to paint these watch dials. They became known as the Radium Girls. These women were enthusiastic, hard-working, and often quite young, many in their late teens or early 20s. The job was seen as glamorous at the time, offering good pay, especially compared to other jobs available to women, and an opportunity to contribute to the war effort. One of the key techniques used in this job was called lip pointing. The women were instructed to shape the bristles of their paint brushes with their lips or tongues to create a fine point before dipping the brushes into the radium paint. This technique allowed for the precise application of the glowing numbers on the watch faces. The women were assured by their employers that the paint was completely safe. Some supervisors even encouraged them to ingest small amounts of radium, claiming it was harmless and might even be beneficial. The women quickly became accustomed to the peculiarities of their work. They laughed and joked about how their skin, hair, and clothes would glow faintly after their shifts. Some even saw it as a perk of the job. Attending parties with a faint, ethereal glow made them the center of attention. Radium was, after all, a substance of prestige and fascination. Who wouldn't want to carry a little of its magic with them? But the magic began to wear off. Over time, many of the Radium Girls started experiencing alarming health problems. It began with mysterious aches and pains, then escalated to far more severe symptoms. Their teeth would fall out, their gums would develop painful abscesses, and their jaws would begin to deteriorate, a horrifying condition later dubbed radium jaw. Some women's bones became so brittle that their limbs fractured with the slightest pressure. These symptoms baffled doctors at the time, as radium poisoning was not yet understood. What made this even more tragic was how the early deaths of some Radium Girls were misdiagnosed. One of the first victims, Molly Maggia, passed away in 1922 after her jaw literally disintegrated. Doctors initially blamed syphilis, a diagnosis that carried a social stigma. This false narrative not only tarnished Molly's reputation, but also delayed critical awareness about the dangers of radium exposure. The situation worsened when women began dying en masse. Their deaths were slow, agonizing, and often unexplained. Families were left grieving and confused, unable to find answers. But one woman, Grace Fryer, decided to fight back. Grace had worked at a radium dial factory in Orange, New Jersey, and her health began deteriorating in ways eerily similar to her co-workers. In 1927, she set out to hold her employer accountable. Grace and a few other former Radium Girls sought legal representation. However, finding a lawyer willing to take their case was an uphill battle. Radium was a lucrative industry, and the companies involved were powerful and influential. Many lawyers hesitated to go up against them, fearing professional ruin. After years of searching, Grace finally found a lawyer willing to help, Raymond Berry. The lawsuit against the United States Radium Corporation became a landmark case in American history. The women argued that the company knowingly exposed them to radium without disclosing the risks. The company, however, denied any wrongdoing, claiming that the women's health issues were unrelated to their work. They even suggested that the women's lifestyles, not the radium, were to blame, a tactic designed to discredit their claims. The legal battle was grueling. By the time the case went to trial in 1928, the women were gravely ill. Some could barely stand, let alone testify, but their courage and determination carried them through. The trial garnered significant media attention, with newspapers dubbing the women the Radium Girls. Public opinion began to shift in their favour as the harrowing details of their suffering came to light. One shocking detail uncovered during the trial was the company's own awareness of radium's dangers. Years earlier, the United States Radium Corporation had conducted internal studies showing the harmful effects of radium exposure. In fact, male scientists working with radium in their laboratories used protective gear, including lead screens and masks to shield themselves. Yet these precautions were never extended to the women painting the dials. This deliberate negligence became a focal point of the case, exposing the corporation's prioritization of profits over human lives. Eventually, the Radium Girls won their case. The United States Radium Corporation was ordered to compensate the women and cover their medical expenses. But the victory was bittersweet. Many of the women did not live to see justice served, and those who survived continued to suffer from the effects of radium poisoning for the rest of their lives. The Radium Girls case had far-reaching consequences. It prompted significant changes in workplace safety regulations, including the establishment of the first standards for occupational exposure to radiation. These reforms laid the groundwork for modern labour protections and inspired the creation of organisations like the Occupational Safety and Health Administration decades later. Beyond labour laws, the Radium Girls' story also influenced scientific research. At the time of their deaths, little was known about the effects of radiation on the human body. The suffering of these women provided crucial, albeit tragic, insights into the dangers of radioactive materials. Their bones, preserved as part of research studies, helped scientists understand radium's behavior in the human body, particularly its tendency to replace calcium in bones, causing lasting damage. The cultural impact of their story is just as profound. The Radium Girls have become a symbol of resilience and justice, inspiring books, plays and films. These adaptations, such as Kate Moore's best-selling book, The Radium Girls, and the subsequent stage play, have brought their story to new generations. Through these retellings, the Radium Girls are remembered not just as victims, but as heroes who stood up for their rights and made the world a better place. Their story also serves as a powerful lesson about the intersection of science, ethics and industry. During the early 20th century, the allure of radium blinded many to its dangers. The lack of regulatory oversight allowed corporations to exploit both the workers' and the public's trust in science. The Radium Girls case emphasizes the importance of skepticism and caution when dealing with emerging technologies, a lesson that is increasingly relevant today as we navigate advancements in artificial intelligence, biotechnology and other fields. Even more poignant is the personal dimension of their story. These women were daughters, sisters, wives and friends. They lived in an era when opportunities for women were limited, yet they found work that seemed to offer both independence and respect. Their employers betrayed that trust, turning what seemed like an opportunity into a nightmare. Despite their suffering, these women demonstrated extraordinary bravery in confronting a system stacked against them. For Grace Fryer and the other Radium Girls, pursuing justice was not just about compensation, it was about making sure no one else had to endure what they went through. Their fight was not just legal, it was moral. They sought to protect future generations from the negligence and greed that had caused their suffering. As we reflect on their story, It's important to honor the individuals behind the legacy. These were ordinary women thrust into extraordinary circumstances who found themselves fighting a battle they never anticipated. Their strength and determination remind us that real change often comes from the most unexpected places. The Radium Girls story isn't just history, it's a call to action. It challenges us to remain vigilant, to question authority when necessary, and to ensure that progress never comes at the expense of human dignity. Their sacrifices have given us a safer world, but their legacy demands that we continue to strive for justice, accountability, and the protection of human life. Thank you for watching. Let us honor their glow by ensuring that no one's voice is silenced and every worker is protected. Stay curious and inspired. Like and subscribe for more stories and share your ideas for the next video in the comments.